All right, welcome back. I am Kyle of Give Pause Hobby, and this is Winding the Gears, the show in which we talk about the changes to the BetterBot project and the Clockwork expansion to Leader Games Root. We have a new update that was kind of like multi-part. I'll go over, it came out once, and then there were some updated things that, finalized versions that came out. Final update after the original one came out. So there's also an exciting thing here. This is probably going to be the final version. At least this will be the seed of the final version that Leader Games now take to testing. So the internal BetterBot project testing, they're feeling like they should. I'm, as you are about to hear, excited for pretty much all of these changes and excited to get them to the table and play with them. And I'm also excited to see what they will look like, obviously, once they come out on the real boards with the real art. And I mean, the new Clockwork art is fantastic if you have not seen it. But also to see what they come out with on the other side of Leader Games testing, because I think the more of these wonderful people, whether that's Benjamin on this side of things or everybody on the Leader Games side that is in on this process, the better the product that's going to come out the other end. So let's get into it. There are, however, some exciting new things, not just faction changes here. So at the bottom of the BetterBot project, kind of like header on Board Game Geek, there's a section called Other Interaction. And there are three new things that are here. First of all, the Vagabond Arbiter. So if a human is playing the Vagabond Arbiter, the defending bots will enlist it if they meet all three conditions. The bots have less than 3 maximum hits, they have less maximum hits than the attacker has pieces, and the Arbiter has less victory points than they do. So they will enlist its help if it would behoove them, if it looked like they're going to take a beating in the battle, and of course, as long as the Arbiter isn't running away with the match. Next, Lake Map. So this is exciting. This is essentially, I have played with the bots on the Lake Map because I didn't anticipate it being an issue, and this is essentially how I played with it. So it says, Ferry. The bots will use the ferry following normal movement rules, treating it as if the clearing with the ferry and all other lake clearings had a normal path. And of course, they score 1 victory point instead of drawing a card, as per standard bot rules. It didn't really need to be in there, but never hurts to remind people. They don't draw cards, these cold, dead mechanical hands and all that. Mountain Map, this is a new one. The reason I played the lake more than the mountain is probably because I didn't understand how the bots could use it, and this is Benjamin's idea for doing that. So closed paths, the bots ignore them. They ignore the rules regarding closed paths and treat them as normal paths at all times. The players do not. So notably, this would be, this aspect of the map would be, I guess, ignored and moot if I did it for a Robo-Rumble between all different bots. However, the next part would be applicable in that match, which is the pass. So when a bot attempts to target a clearing based on highest or lowest priority, the pass will always meet this condition. This means the pass will most likely targeted by the bots and wins all tiebreakers. So it makes sense because the pass is going to get you a victory point at the end of your turn. There are obviously reasons why a clearing that did that wouldn't be the place that you target, but there are probably more reasons why it would. So makes sense, and I'm excited to play the mountain map more. All right, for the Contraption Conspiracy, the only real changes on the board is the use of level. The difficulty level, beginner 1, expert 2, master 3. That used to be down under daylight on the plot thickens. It is no longer there. Now it's just the plot thickens is going to happen if there are 2 or more Corvid warriors in the clearing you're looking at. It no longer is based off of the difficulty level. However, up in the Birdsong area, in the recruit action, level warriors in each of 2 ordered clearings, that now is determined by the difficulty. So I think this makes a ton of sense. Plot thickens even at the lowest difficulty level, or the middle or lower. Sometimes just didn't really happen that much, but recruit is always going to happen. And, expert being 2 recruits per ordered clearing makes sense, but master being up to 3, that could get rough pretty quickly. So I'm a big fan of this change. Now, on the trade card side of things, there are quite a few more changes. So from left to right, gamble. So this had, and the token is removed, was added. So, the top portion where the human player has to guess the type of token. If correct, the token effect does not trigger, and the token is removed after scoring points for flipped tokens, and the player draws a card. If incorrect, gain a thingamajig, victory point. That just makes sense to me. If it was incorrect, you knew what the thing was, so you might as well get off the board because they got kind of exposed. So backup plans, if I'm not mistaken, used to say that opponents do not score victory points when removing your plot tokens. This is a really cool change. So instead, they get removed because that's part of the game, and the opponents get the victory point because that's part of the game. But when that happens, place a warrior from your supply into the clearing which contained the token. So, you got rid of the thing, but it makes more sense. Backup plans, they have other means of getting their plots back onto the table. It kind of fits the theme better. I feel like it encourages interaction rather than discourages it. It seems like a good change to me. Mastermind, this is a really cool change because instead of the plot thickens happening twice, the plot happens twice. So the plot thickens. I've played with Mastermind and I was really excited for it, and I think it maybe happened once in like 7 turns. Because the plot thickens, just sometimes you don't meet that criteria. And if you don't, then you have a trait card that is essentially not you just don't have a trait card. So the fact that plot is going to happen twice, that's going to be a totally different feel. I think much higher power level on that, which is what the trait cards, to me, kind of represent. It gives a character to the faction in the way of giving them a benefit that they wouldn't have otherwise had, and that's not how the old Mastermind card worked. And Vendetta is taking over Muscle. So I honestly can't remember what Muscle was. I just remember that was the 4th one. But this one, whenever any token is flipped, it has the immediate effect of a bomb. If I'm not mistaken, because it doesn't say instead, this is in addition to. So if it's a snare, if it's extortion, if it's raid, it does that thing, but it also has a bomb effect, which is definitely a powerful change. All right, the Dummy Duchy had quite a few more changes to their board. So I guess we'll just start at the top. There are no changes to the berries, no changes in birdsong, but we get to daylight, and so in dig, it's the same action, place a tunnel and move 4 warriors from your burrow into such an ordered clearing with no tunnel and none of your buildings. So they are explicitly targeting new ground. They're going to places where they can place buildings, as opposed to clumping up in their spots that just might not have a tunnel. So that is nice. Under build, this is a really cool change. So if you think back, there was a little bit of tricky wording that made me mistaken the effect when I first played at the Dummy Duchy. It was based off if you have more of citadels than markets or whatever. This has just clarified it into a sensible kind of if-then statement, which, so in such a clearing that you rule with most Duchy warriors, place a citadel if you have more than 8 warriors in your supply. Otherwise, place a market. So it's saying, in the beginning of the game, you obviously have more than 8 warriors in your supply. So that's the most important thing. Victory points are great, but if you get completely wiped from the map, those few victory points in the beginning of the game aren't going to be worth much because you will stall out in the early low levels of the scoring board. So you want to have board presence, and there's not going to be this back and forth because honestly, that's not really how humans play either. sometimes you might, but other times you just want to, it's like an iron fist in the beginning of the game, and then later we'll make some markets and we'll start doing some stuff with that. And this is essentially how the Dummy Duchy is operating now, which I really like. Another large change, rally used to be the last step in daylight, and ministers used to be the first step in evening. That is now the opposite. So the ministers will get to take their actions, the swayed ministers, before you get to evening, at which point you will rally. I think that makes sense. Rally is kind of more of like a cleanup action in my headcanon. So it makes sense that you finish your turn, which obviously includes your ministers, and then you do rally. So speaking of rally, there is a change in that last little section. Then in each clearing, you rule with more than 4 duchy warriors. That used to be 6. Place all but 4 of your warriors from that clearing into the burrow. So that just is going to happen more often. There are a lot of times when the rally action just wouldn't, that part of it wouldn't, proc at all. And so now it's just going to happen more often. Speaking of the other part of rally, the up above, in which your warriors on the board are going to be moving around to bolster your buildings, it clarifies movement. So it says in each order clearing without a citadel or market and less than 3 duchy warriors, move your warriors into an adjacent clearing with a citadel or a market. The old one used to be move your warriors towards the closest clearing with a citadel or a market, which, I played with that, and in some ways I can understand that old model where, even if they're one clearing closer, that's maybe one step towards helping. But I just think this is a little bit cleaner. You're only looking at the directly adjacent clearings. Just makes more sense to me. Okay, so over at the minister track, there are also some changes here. From top to bottom with the captain. Now, this only applies when you're an attacker. It used to just be deal an extra hit in clearings with tunnels. Now you have to be attacking. Makes sense to me. Brigadier is totally new. You repeat the dig action if there are at least 3 warriors in the burrow, targeting the clearing with the most enemy buildings and tokens. So I think that's really cool. It brings the level of dig down, because otherwise you need 4 or more, and it targets, it kind of just keeps pressure on the other factions because they're deliberately going towards spots that are going to have the most enemy buildings and tokens to kind of make them go, whoa-oh. It removes the score of victory point if unable to dig, and I think that just is because they're lowering the threshold to be able to dig. So more often than not, hopefully you will be able to do it. So banker is essentially the same beginning as the old banker, but it's generalized. It's no longer specifically placing a market. It's just repeat the build action. So you follow the same cooler rules that we talked about before for the building. So mayor is obviously freed up because of that, as banker and mayor used to be kind of tied together. So they now are going to return a warrior to supply from the clearing you rule with the most of your warriors. Score 1 victory point. So I feel like that's just going to happen more often. It's going to get you a nice source of victory points that way, which is, I think, explains why they moved mayor to where it is now. It used to be the 4th minister. Now it's down closer to the victory point, the level 3 ones, because it is kind of a victory point generator now. Interestingly, mayor and brigadier, the effects changed, but the order of the suits didn't. So mayor used to be fox and brigadier used to be mouse. Brigadier is now fox, and mayor is mouse. I don't have the wherewithal to tell you how exactly that changed. I know some of the other, some of the suits, they have nice synergies between the different ministers found within them. I don't know that necessarily changes anything that I can think of right now. Who knows? Maybe that will become evident to me in playing this new version. So I mentioned that there was a change after I printed out I printed the first of this new update, and then it was finalized. So there are a couple of changes here. So when we go back to build in daylight, you're going to score 1 victory point if you can't place a building while there are still buildings on this board. So if you just don't have a spot or you don't have a good enough foothold to actually put buildings on the map, you're going to get paid for your troubles. I think that's nice. And then over on the minister track, it says when the second minister in a tier is placed during sway, also place the third minister. So those tiers that were added for this new version, they're going to get ignored because that rule that was there was immediately replaced with a setup change. So the Dummy Duchy now has a setup adjustment. Discard the top 2 cards of the deck. And for each, place the crown on the topmost unswayed minister. So Dummy Duchy is getting a huge buff at the beginning of the game because they're going to start the game with 2 of these minister powers unlocked, which I think is fantastic. The minister track is absolutely one of the coolest parts of this build, as it is one of the coolest parts of the underground duchy in general. So now the bot just gets to access that part of the gameplay that much sooner. I think it's a great change, and I wrote it into my new copy that I had printed, and will definitely look forward to playing with it. Okay, on the trait change side of the house, foundations and investors are both the exact same. When we get to overwhelm, this is I have my notes written here. What with 4 A's. This is really cool. So the dig action requires and moves only 3 warriors instead of 4, and is repeated a second time each turn. So pretty wild. Makes it less of a kind of explosion of moles coming out of the tunnels with 3 instead of 4, but it could potentially happen twice a turn, which is pretty amazing. And then invaders, during the dig action, target the ordered clearing with the most enemy buildings but the least enemy warriors. So kind of targeting the spot where you're going to be able to really do the most work. If you can't build due to no free building slots, battle in all clearings instead. So again, as I've said for other factions, for other trait cards, I think this just leans towards more interaction, making the board state more volatile, and something you can engage with, which all of those things are good. Whether you are a normal person playing with the bots, where you are using them either as solo opponents or to bolster your player counts, or you're a crazy person like me who is watching the bots buzz and whir and spark up against each other, it just makes for more interaction, which means the games are going to be more interesting. And last but not least, there's one small thing. I have no idea if this is going to be something that Benjamin is going to continue, or if this is just a one-off kind of thought exercise. But he posted a solo challenge, and this is a pretty clear reference to the Root board game, or obviously the Root board game, the digital Root game, which has all of those challenges in it. Here's a solo challenge. You play as Marquis de Cat, and you will be playing against the Cogwheel Cult and the Contraption Conspiracy. Stage 0, you're going to play beginner difficulty for both, and it says skip if confident. So if you feel confident in your ability, go right to stage 1, which would be expert difficulty for both. Stage 2, master difficulty for both. Stage 3, master difficulty for both, mastermind on the Cogwheel Cult, and fanatic on Contraption Conspiracy traits. So I would imagine that would mean there are no traits used in the other ones, because he makes that specific on the last one. But yeah, this would be really interesting. I mean, these are the 2 insurgent factions going against the most entrenched, far-reaching faction. This would be stressful for sure, and I'm very much interested. Can you do it? It asks at the end, and my answer is I don't know, but I'd like to find out. So with that, thanks for tuning in for another Winding the Gears. I don't know what the future is for this. It sounds like on this end of things that Benjamin is happy with the factions, how they are running. Who knows? Maybe we will get some Leader Games internal print and plays like we have with the Badgers and the Rats, which would be really cool. And when that happens, you can be sure that I will update you on how they play, any changes that we have from right now. But as for now, as of June 3rd, head on out, have fun. Sorry, as of June 6th. Have fun with these factions, and I look forward to, now that the school year is almost over, getting back to the forest and the mountain with the Clockworks and these better bots, and getting some more games in. So we will see you next time. Have a great day.